Where are you depositing your currency? Welcome to Voices of Legacy, where we discuss and apply the Sunday morning message. My name's Colleen. I'm here with Joe, Vineeth, and Paco. Let's dive in together. So, Joe, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
What's the key takeaway for you from this Sunday morning's message? It was Pastor Daniel speaking again on Mark, chapter 1. So, yeah.
Well, I would say the very first point about where is the kingdom, like in your home? Are you operating from a place of depletion? And if you have so much constant activity, what I took away from it is that will your worship feel more technical versus actually sitting with God? So that's what my initial takeaway is.
How do you feel like you've had a week? We were talking before the podcast. You were invited to even go and lead worship at another place. That's something you do.
Right.
So you're gifted with guitar skills. You go and you lead worship.
That's right.
So this must have hit a little bit differently for you, what you just shared.
For anybody listening right now, there was a lot of weather and ice and storms just that came about and was just the rest that I needed because I was operating from a lot of activity with learning a lot of songs. And luckily, the worship was postponed to a different time. So I was able to get caught up on my schoolwork and actually not do the technical worship that is for later, but more just sitting with God while the storm was brewing outside.
Yeah. And, I find that is a great place to start making deposits. I have this vision of a piggy bank. We all have a piggy bank and we make deposits, and sometimes we also make withdrawals. And depending on our capacity at certain points in time, our piggy bank might be a little depleted and we need to make those deposits for ourselves. And it looks different for everybody, but, it's something that we can discern on a regular basis. Vineeth, we're going to go over to you. I see you're thinking about stuff. What's on your mind?
I was trying to weave the message, right? So that, Pastor Eric and Pastor Daniel have been talking through the book Mark, right? So they talked about the authority of Jesus, right? So basically that Jesus is king. And then they talked about the authority that Jesus has, especially over the spiritual. And the third piece was what he was talking about now was, how do you make that practical in your life, in your everyday life, right? And frankly, this is an area that I have struggled with, right? So I've gone up and down in this whole aspect, right? And it goes back to the piggy bank. When the piggy bank's full, I was okay. When the piggy bank is empty, I struggle with it, right? I sometimes ask God, where are you? I know that you died for me on the cross. I know you did this for all of human beings. But sometimes I feel like you're not there. When I'm talking to you, why am I feeling like it's hitting the wall? And some of the things that Pastor Daniel mentioned, I think helps us with creating that intimacy, right? With how do you fill the piggy bank? So there's this example, and I don't know if I've shared this here or not before. There's one time I was feeling like, and this is in church, right, when the worship team was singing, I was feeling like, in my previous church, and this is a few years back, I felt like I was serving a lot, and in this church, I'm not feeling like I'm serving, and that's not the church's fault. It's more, my piggy bank is empty, so I'm not serving.
Yeah,
and I was feeling kind of sad for myself, right? And just as I was thinking that thought, right, literally maybe 5 seconds, 6 seconds in, Pastor Daniel comes and he knocks on me and he says, "Hey, I'll be right after me talking. I want you to, help me with some props, taking it back in."
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Even that little thought where I was feeling like I was not serving in church, God heard that. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to give you something to do, right?
Yes.
And he was right there, and I had something to do. And I went back and I told God, I know that you have me on my mind. You care for me. It's not just the big message, the cross, the salvation.
Yeah.
But it's also those little thoughts. And then he adds back into your piggy bank. And that's where the intimacy thing comes into play, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I took away. Like, how do you practice that presence? How do you practice the intimacy? So then you're not second guessing, right? You're in tune with this Jesus.
God knows our thoughts. The conversation that we're having, the struggle, he knows all of that. I've tested that before for myself. I said, God, if you're listening
Yeah.
just to my thoughts, do you hear my thoughts? And he was listening to my thoughts. I mean, we see that in little testimonies, just like you gave, Vineeth,
Yep.
that God cares for the big and the little things. And especially when we're looking to be service-oriented and kind of, forward motion with the Spirit of God. We want to be aligned with how the Spirit is moving. And sometimes that is through a resting time. We're not always doing in forward motion. It depends on, it could be a minute by minute, day by day, season by season. Some seasons last a lot longer too. Paco, what were some of your takeaways from Sunday?
Oh, my takeaways from Sunday. Well, a lot of good stuff here tonight. What Vineeth was talking, I can identify with what he was saying. When I get into those modes on, am I doing this right? Where's, what's, but that's all me. Then it gets back to, we serve the God that's most high, creator of the universe.
Yeah.
Like you said, he can hear our thoughts. His love just surpasses anything. In the book of Mark, and as I'm going through the Bible, I said, back in the time, people were with Jesus. They were with him, walking with him, seeing these miracles, and still having doubt. When they're in the boat, and Jesus is sleeping, we're going to perish. Ye a little faith. What you don't believe this? What's going? So I'm not going to beat myself up for being a little down and feeling like I'm having a lack of faith. And said the disciples that were right there walking with Jesus question sometimes what's going on. So
They sure did.
So I'm just grateful that I'm chosen. I believe,
Yes.
and I see him working every day. And more every day. And the 21 days of prayer started, and I'm still doing it every morning. They continued it, so that's good.
That rhythm and that sense of what really is working for you on a spiritual level too. And for you, it was, I'm going to keep on this prayerful attitude and behavior in the morning. And that starts off your day in a different aspect. It gives your mind somewhere else to really focus on and start off your day really well. Sometimes when life is hitting us at all sides, that disrupts some of those healthy habits and behaviors and attitudes that we have. And that's when we kind of retreat back and say, okay, Lord, I have this little bit of time here today. How can I refocus and recenter and rededicate and rediscern where I need to be right now? I had a few things happen to me this week. We were sharing earlier off camera, and I felt like, my whole week went by. I didn't know where it went, honestly. I went into my refrigerator. I said, where's the food? It's gone. I didn't even remember, when did I last cook my breakfast on the stove? It just flew by where it was autopilot. Yeah. And I yearned for getting back to those routines that support me in a positive way, that support my spiritual relationship with the Lord, that support me with my family too. I felt very disconnected. That was one part of the message this week, was about how this ties into family. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
When he was saying, the ministry at home, the big kids at home, I kind of smiled. I was like, give myself a little pat on the back, because I tell my son I'm proud of him all the time. I love you all the time. Good job all the time.
So important.
So I kind of smiled. I was like, okay, I'm doing a pretty good job.
Even though I'm unmarried at the moment and currently living on my own, which has its perks, the connection piece of that, when you're not with your immediate or your extended family right now, it can kind of take a toll. And I really think of the last point that Pastor Daniel brought up of the leper, because here we have a man that is without touch,
Yes.
without connection, just completely ostracized. And we have so many people in this day and age that just are without that connection. You know, you could easily just go to the grocery store and order something online and never interact with a single human being again. It's just, that's how 2026 is
Yes.
in America. But I'm very, very fortunate that I'm able to extend those words of affirmations to my current relationship, to my family members and my nieces and nephews, and to my future kids as well. Just teaching me that as Jesus, how did he affect the leper? He affected him before he even touched him, you know? So myself as a teacher, I'm able to impart like in the best way that I can to, you know, restore those kids' identity if they're lacking, so to speak.
Oh,
Nice.
That's my
is
that's my lane. The leper's my
powerful.
lane.
But that touch and that affirmation, I will just share, you know, I'll be a little vulnerable here. So we were sharing off camera how my mom passed on this past week to heaven. And, you know, Paco, when you were saying that you have said to a younger generation, I'm proud of you and well done. As my mom was passing, I was able to tell her that.
Oh, beautiful.
I really wanted to say those words. Well done. Who doesn't want to hear well done? And for a person who's lived their life in faith for their entire life, wow. I wanted her to know that. Well done. Because Jesus is telling each one of us that. And we have ears to hear when we're spiritually attuned. And I wanted her to hear it in the physical. I wanted to have that physical touch with her as well. So I held her hand, kept vigil, held her hand. And I also told her, I'm proud of you. You've done such a good job. And through her struggle of a week-long struggle in the hospital physically, anybody would have needed to hear that. And that was like really important. So when I heard this message on Sunday, it landed well for me. I think we always wish we could do more as well. There's always a part of us that wonders, could have I done a little bit more? And maybe we could. But at the end of the day, you know, telling your family, it all starts with your home, I think. And then it goes out from there, Vineeth.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think God designed family as a very strategic unit, right? So if you think about a lot of the challenges we have, I'm specifically talking about wisdom concepts like, you know, love or justice or mercy, you know, aspects like that.
Yeah.
And even if it's for a big group, if you actually distill it down to the family unit, you can actually solve those problems much more easier. You have way more perspective. Give an example, right? I'm not in the habit of getting political here, but so if you think of a problem for a country like the U.S., for example, immigration is a problem, right? And if you think about it, you know, there are people coming in, people going out, etc., right? And so if you think about, is that same concept when you apply it to family, would I want someone, you know, opening the door and come in, or would I want to invite them into my home, right? So there's, you know, these big concepts that we don't necessarily understand when it's that macro. It's simplified when you look at it from a family unit perspective, because it's much more easier to understand. And even within the family itself, you see how you practice concepts like love and justice and have mercy and forgive, right? And if you think about it, the Trinity itself is a family. All these concepts were already being practiced within that unit. If you think about a one God model, right?
Yeah.
There's no concept of family there. So then you beg to ask the question, who was God loving before? Who was God being just with? Who was he forgiving before? You have to have a concept of a family that you can then replicate within human beings, which is then a strategic unit that, you know, is multiplicated, and, you know, now we're doing it this way, right? Which is, so within that, you have to practice all these aspects before, you know, we act as a community and do better.
The importance of family, the importance of affirmation, the importance of spiritual discernment, checking in on your capacity, knowing when to refill your piggy bank, and then make those withdrawals and share those with your family first, and then the people around you in your sphere of influence. We've done well tonight. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank
This
you.
has been Voices of Legacy, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Voices of Legacy, where we discuss and apply what we've heard on Sunday mornings. For more information on Legacy Church, follow our socials or go to legacychurchct.org.